G'day, how you doing? It's me, Camui Kushi, and today we're looking at the proposed changes to healers in Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail that they teased in the May 16th live letter. So let's see what they're doing for all the healers first. To begin with, across all the healers and also all the magical range DPS, Swift Cast is being reduced to 40 seconds from 60 seconds. You will now have an extra use of Swiftcast every 3 minutes? I'd have to math that. I think so. Yeah, every 3 minutes, because they removed 20 seconds from the cooldown. So more uses of Swiftcast. Interesting. This is the only role-wide change they've made to healers, but you'll see as we move along, there are some things they kind of have in common with their other changes. So let's look at that now first with White Mage. A new action allowing the caster to move forward will be added. So basically Sage as Icarus. It looks like in the job action trailer, it looks like it functions the same as Icarus. Hopefully that means you can dash to other allies and enemies. It could also just be like a dash like Reaper's, but the way it looks in the job action trailer, it feels like it's the same as Icarus. The other one that they've listed here is they will get an AoE attack which is usable after Presence of Mind, which is their cooldown that lets them cast spells faster, and they'll get 3 stacks of it. So in the job action trailer, you can see they actually use other things in between it, so it looks like they'll get 3 stacks of this and then they can use them whenever. And one thing they said that they didn't put on the slides for whatever reason, even though I think it's a big change, is Tetragrammaton is getting a second charge. So you'll be able to use Tetragrammaton and sit on another charge if you have an emergency. So you'll always be able to have it on cooldown and not just sitting there wasting uses, which is very nice. I'm always a big fan of when skills have charges for that reason, because that way you can freely use it and not have to worry too much. But let's have a little bit of a looky and see how it actually functions in the job action trailer. So let's look at that right now. So you can see here, they start off using their Liturgy of the Bell, their Lily. And they do a Dia, their dot. And they do a Glare. Then they do something, I'm not sure, like that's just the effect of the Lily, but I'm not sure what that move is, I'd have to check. Then they cast their Blood Lily skill, and they use the Lily Bell for the heal. Then they use Presence of Mind, and that's the new AoE. Then they used Aquaval on the tank. So you can see they used a different ability in addition to having the AoE ability. They did do a Dia, and then the new AoE again. And then Blood Lily. And then their AoE, there's their little dash. Now it's hard to tell if they dash to the enemy, the tank, or just straight forward. There's Holy, there's something. I think that might be the 3rd hit of the new AoE ability, or it could be a completely different ability altogether. It's hard to say. But we'll have a quick look now at how White Mage functions in the game as it is currently. Okie dokie, so let's whoosh over to the game. Whoosh. So I'm here in Swallow's Compass, got my striking dummy out. I'm White Maging. So to kind of mimic what they did in the trailer, let's start off. We'll drop our Lily. So it's a ground target skill. Hopefully it's still a ground target skill. So there's the Lily. Then we do Dia, the dot. Then we do a little bit of Glaring. Pachoo. Then they did something. It looked like a buff. Now let's have a little bit of a look through it. Was it Plenary Indulgence? Oh, it might have been Plenary Indulgence, which, as it stands currently, gives you a stack to all nearby party members that gives additional healing on your AoE heals. Except for Cure 3. Does it do it on Cure 3? Medica 2. It might be Cure 3. That other tooltip is in the way. Yeah, it looks like it is Cure 3. That's really annoying. I need to turn that off. So after that, then they use I think that's what they used. I think they used Afflatus Rapture. Then they used Presence of Mind. So right now, Presence of Mind, it's 2-minute cooldown. It just makes you cast spells faster, so you can spam glares. That's what most people use it for, spam glare. In earlier level stuff, you can also use it to like spam a heal on the tank, just to really, really make sure they don't frickin' die if they're doing a wall to wall. Then they did the new AoE attack. Then they did, I think it was either like, okay, so that's Benediction. Nah, okay, they used Tetragrammaton. So Tetra, it's 60-second cooldown. It's going to have 2 charges now. It's basically a cure, nearly a cure 2 in its potency, which is pretty good. It's a pretty nice little ability. Yeah, 700 potency, instant cast OGC. That's a very nice change. Then they used their Blood Lily ability, so let's spam some of our lilies to get the Blood Lily up. What is that actually called? Afflatus Misery. So that's the their attacky skill that they do. Then they use the new AoE, and then they use the dash. Now, it's interesting because in PvP they have a dash. I can't do it here right now because I don't think I can use PvP actions in Explorer mode. But if you go to the Wolves Den, in the PvP area near Limsa Laminsa, there's striking dummies there that let you use PvP actions. And they have a Seraphim Strike, I think it's called, or Seraph Strike, which lets them dash in, and it's actually an attack. So you can only do it to enemies. But this new dash looks like the same as Icarus, where you dash to a target or you dash forward, and it's not an attack, it's just a dash. Then they use the new Holy, as well as the new AoEs. Now, I think it's interesting. Personally for me, I think Asai's is like one of the coolest, most fun White Mage skills. It's always exciting to get that. You get it at level 56, and when you're leveling it, it feels like it changes the job completely. Alongside the lilies, like getting a Afflatus Solus and a Afflatus Rapture is very nice. But getting this, it's like it restores MP, it does damage, and it does an AoE heal that's the equivalent of Medica, I think. Let's see, 400 potency, 400 potency, yeah. So it's basically, and it's an OGCD. So I personally would have preferred if they put that having 2 charges instead of Tetra. I mean, it's nice that they gave Tetra an extra charge, and it kind of brings things in line with Astro having Benediction having 2 charges, which is kind of similar to Tetragrammaton. I personally would have preferred they put a charge in a size. Who knows, maybe they still will. They did say that these aren't all the changes. There are more changes, but they feel like these were the cooler ones, so maybe that's something that they're going to be concluding as well. It's hard to say. So as you're playing with White Mage, you know, you get your lilies, and you spend them, and they're GCD heals, and you've got your Tetras for single target OGCD heals. And then you've also got the Afflatus Misery, which is a GCD attack. Lily Bell's a no GCD heal, technically, and you can trigger that whenever, and it'll use the remaining stacks. Did they use... Maybe Thin Air was one of the things they used. There were a couple of skills that I didn't recognize, because there are a lot of new animations coming in Dawn Trail, so it's a little bit tricky to determine what's new skills and what's not. But you can definitely tell that new AoE skill after they do Presence of Mind. That's very interesting, because you're going to be using Presence of Mind during your burst anyway. It makes sense. Just chuck a new ability on there. I'm wondering if it's on the GCD or if it's weavable. It's probably going to be on the GCD. So that's going to be very interesting to see. But yes, that's White Mage. I think it's pretty cool that they're giving a stack to Tetra. I'm very glad that they're giving another healer a dash, because it's so useful on Sage. Icarus, like, I miss it whenever I play any other healer. I think that's very cool. Extra AoE attacks. I mean, healers have wanted extra attacks for a while now. It's nice that they're finally giving them something to do besides just spamming. Because White Mage Burst is basically, if you don't have an Afflatus Rapture ready, it's basically just do Presence of Mind and spam Glare. 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 Become Glare Mage. That is how things are currently. Is just boom, boom, boom. That's their burst. And of course, if you use these during as well, you'll be able to finish off with an Afflatus Misery, and you'll chuck in a size there as well, because you kind of want to use a size as a damage for its damage. The healing's a nice bonus. That's kind of why I feel like it would be better if it had charges, because then you could use it to attack, because you don't want to have it off cool, like sitting there unused. You want that damage going out. But it's nicer when you can also get some use out of the healing too, or use out of the MP as well. So having charges on that would be really nice. I suppose it keeps the ability to... It keeps the decision-making aspect, which I suppose every job still kind of needs. It get boring if you're not having to make any unique case-by-case decisions. So I kind of get it. I also get why they wouldn't want to add too much damage to White Mage, because they'd have to offer something to the other healers as well. But who knows? Maybe we'll be getting that, and they just haven't talked about it. That's it for White Mage. Next up, we're going to be having a little bit of a looky at Scholar. Yeah. Okay, so for Scholar, the first thing they've mentioned here on the slides is they have the new ability Seraphism, which is a transformation-y type thingy. They said it enhances healing magic as well, which is interesting because that's so vague. Scholar already has a couple of abilities that enhance their healing magic, like Fey Illumination and so on. So there is a little bit of a hint in the trailer that I'm not 100% on, but it feels like there are more specific changes that Seraphism does that we'll talk about in a sec. The other thing is they're getting a new AoE that can be executed after change stratagem, and it's going to have a dot. I've said it's basically an AoE dot. So again, like White Mage, you use an ability and then you get an AoE skill. We'll see that pattern again with Sage. So it's very nice that they're listening to healers and adding more attacks, like I was saying before. One thing they didn't mention on the slides is there's also going to be a trait that reduces the cooldown for recitation. They said something about reducing the cooldown or something like that. Basically getting more uses of it. I'm assuming what that means is it's just going to get a lower cooldown. But I mean, there could always be like maybe something procs, and the proc reduces the cooldown. That's what it sounded to me initially, but it sounds more like it's just going to have a reduced cooldown. So like White Mage is getting an extra stack of Tetragrammaton, Scholar is getting a reduced cooldown on recitation, so it's getting an increase to its ability to buff heals, essentially. Because recitation basically gives you a guaranteed crit on your next GCD heal. Actually, it's a guaranteed crit on any of your heals, I think, that you use after it. Because yes, you can use it on excogitation, so yes. So that's what they've said they're changing, but let's have a little bit of a looky at the trailer and we'll see what other things that they do in it. And we'll have a little bit of a peek at Seraphism. So here we go. So they start off doing recitation, which is neat. Then they cast Sucker, which is an AoE shield. And they do change... Oh, that looks like they went into Biolysis, actually, which is their dot. A Broil. Then change Stratagem. Then they did some kind of thing on the... Oh, that one of those was Excogitation. I'm not sure about the other one. Looks like you can trigger Excogitation whenever you want now, as Seraphism. Now, the interesting thing is here, is it looks like they do a heal on the tank, and it looks like it's instant. So I'm guessing when you go into Seraphism, like that looked like Sucker as well. Let's go back and have a little bit of a look at that again. So you saw there's what looks like the AoE heal, right? And it was a hard cast. But then something similar in animation happens again, but with angels, when Seraphism has been activated. And it looks like it's instant. So there's Seraphism. And that looks like they're casting Adloquium, but it's instant. So I'm wondering if Seraphism does instant casts for certain abilities or something. It's hard to say. It's very difficult to say without seeing hotkeys, but that's how it feels. It feels like it's a form that lets you have faster healing and possibly higher potency. It could be similar to like Astrologian's neutral sect. That's interesting, I think. But let's have a look at how it is in the game, eh? Yeah. And a boop. So I'm gonna swap to Scholar. So looking at what they did in the job action trailer, it looked like they started with recitation. So let's do that. Recitation. And then I feel like they did a soccer. So let's do a soccer as well. Bam. Then they did, I think it was chain stratagem. And they also did biolysis. It's because biolysis, yeah. So I'm pretty sure they had like the little animation on the character as well as that. So I don't think it was just biolysis. Then they did a broil. Nothing different. Broil 4 looks the same as always. I do like the effect of Broil 4, but that's another matter altogether. Then they did the new, what looked like the new AoE dot. And they cast Excogitation as well. Now, what was the other thing that they did? Was it that? It might have been that. Okay, so it's Protraction. So they did Protraction. They had Recitation going, and they did Excogitation. So that's just like a big heal on Excogitation. It also looked like they were able to trigger Excogitation in the video because, like, it's got another 30 seconds to go. And that tank wasn't taking any damage. So it's possible you can trigger the effect now instead of waiting for it to cool down or the tank to take a hit. That would be pretty nice. That'd be a nice little quality of life because sometimes the tanks, it triggers at like 50%. So they could be like here, right? And need that heal, but then they take a hit that just clears out the rest of their HP and it doesn't do anything. So if you can trigger it, like they get here and you're like, I think they're going to get slammed. It'd be nice if you could trigger it. I think that would be neat. It would give you a little bit of like the White Mage's Liturgy of the Bell. You can wait for it to go off, but you can also press it again to trigger it. I think that'd be cool. Hopefully that is what that is the case. Now, an interesting thing that happened in the video is they did biolysis, but then they did the new ability, the AoE dot. So I feel like that implies they will stack. So you'd want to keep your biolysis up still, and then you do the other AoE dot as well, which is pretty neat. I find it interesting though, because Chain Stratagem, it's on a 2-minute cast time, so you'd only be able to use it every 2 minutes, which is the same as Presence of Mind. But I feel like it just seems strange to have a dot that you use every 2 minutes. But I'm sure it'll make sense once we get it in our hands. Overall though, oh, and another thing that they do is, yeah, they do the Seraphism. And of course I should have had my fairy out. They also do Summon Seraph independently of having Seraphism up. So you can have like, you can do Seraphism and just have your regular fairy out. And then you can also summon Seraph. So they look like they're independent skills that you don't have to worry about doing at the same time, which is a good thing. Also, yes, I use Carbuncle instead of Veos. I am a Carbuncle enjoyer. It's interesting though, because like when they were doing the single target shield It feels like they didn't have a cast time on it. I could be mistaken. They could just be enhanced in potency, but I feel like they looked like they were instant cast. It's hard to say, though. I think that'd be pretty cool, though, if you activate Seraphism and then you get some instant casting happening. I'm not sure where I'm going to put that, though. There's a lot of buttons here on Scholar. Scholar is another one of those jobs that has a lot of buttons. Like I've got my Expedient over here. It's the AoE dash and shield. And I've got my Dissipation. It's eat the fairy skill up here. That's just my auto attack because I like to make sure that I actually do auto attacks and just do a little bit of Art of War while I'm getting some book slaps in, because it adds up. It adds up. Get your book slaps in. Slap the ground. Slap some books. Yeah, they've got. If you compare, like White Mage to Scholar, there are quite a few more buttons. Actually, one thing they didn't talk about. I know I'm talking about Scholar at the moment, but I wanted to mention with White Mage, they didn't say anything about Cure 1. So it looks like the free Cure trap will still be there. Hopefully they turn these, because Dawn Trail's all about reducing button bloat. It'd be nice if they just combined these, had that upgrade into that with a trait. Same with, oh no, there is a use case for Medical 1 and 2, actually. But if Cure and Free Cure, there's no reason. We'll talk about that a bit more when we get to Astrologian. Yeah, generally with Scholar, you want to get into combat so you can get your Astral Flow, and you got your charges of Astral Flow. And you're doing your little attack, and you're keeping up your dot, you're maintaining your dot, you're using chain stratagem during burst. You got some leftover Astral Flow. Oh, we'll spend those on energy drain. And that's their current, like, attack rotation sort of thing, is dot up time, broil. You got some movement. How's Ruin 2 compared to Art of War? 180, 220. Okay, so they've actually, at this level, Ruin 2 is actually better. At some levels, you're better off using Art of War if you need to move around. So I'm glad at this. I haven't actually played Scholar for a little bit, so couldn't remember if they had changed that. But yeah, so if you need mobility in an instant cast, you can do that. Realistically, though, when you're playing Scholar, you should be doing the whole slide cast thing to get where you need to go. The same goes for all of the healers, really. If you need to move, do a little bit of slide casting. Of course, you can always, since we've got a 40-second cooldown on Swift Cast, you can use that for mobility too. But if you're really in a pinch and you really got to get somewhere, you've still got good old-fashioned Ruin 2. I haven't mentioned anything about changing that. So yeah. But that seems to be all they've done. Well, all they've said, I should say, for Scholar. I think Seraphism looks really cool. Having it basically a transform into an angel fairy type thing form really goes into the whole job identity, I think. It's a fun idea. How it actually works, though, they were very vague, just saying, it enhances your healing magic. Well, what's that mean? We'll find out. But we can't really get a handle on how it's going to feel until we get it. But that's Scholar. I think having AoE dot is a very interesting thing. I'm pretty sure Scholar had AoE dots way back anyway, before I started playing. So it's interesting that they're bringing in more AoE abilities, more offensive abilities back to healers. So that's enough for Scholar. Let's have a little bit of a looky at Astro next, yeah? Yes. Okay. Okie dokie, so for Astrologian, or Astrologian, I should say. Basically, they've said the card system no longer be random. You'll instead draw cards with offensive, defensive, and curative effects. What this seems to mean is, when we get to the job action trailer, they get a stack of 4 cards, and you know what those cards are going to be able to do. and you've got them to use as you see fit, which is very nice. They're basically removing the random element, which realistically only needed to be removed from the Minor Arcana card. Because you wouldn't necessarily want to have, like, if no one needs healing, you don't want a Lady of Crowns, I think it's called. And if you'd want a Lord of Crowns, basically, for the damage. And if you wanted healing at a certain moment, well, you're not guaranteed to get that. You might get the damage card instead. So removing that random element is nice. I do know it's something that Astrologians weren't super duper happy about. So that's cool. Also, I think it's very cool that they're bringing back different effects for the cards. So currently, as it is, when you draw a card, it's either got a teal border or it's got a purple border. And if it's got a teal border, you give the card to give a melee DPS a 3% buff, or a range DPS a 1% buff. And it's got a purple border, it's the reverse. Give it to a ranged DPS for a 3% buff, or a melee DPS for a 1% buff. And that's it. That's all the cards do. The 6 major arcana just give damage buffs of either 3% or 1%. So, not super duper exciting. The choice is, who do you give the card to? Essentially, that's the choice you're making. And you also have the signs or the symbols on the cards as well that you want to collect for your Astrodyne ability. That's how it currently is. And speaking of Astrodyne and the signs, they're removing them. So the ability they introduced in Endwalker to continue the use of the signs, they're removing. It survived one expansion. Hooray. That's fine. Sign collection, it was always a very finicky sort of thing to do. It was kind of fine in Shadowbringers. We'll talk about that when we have a little bit of a look at the job as it currently is. Another thing that they said is Essential Dignity will get another stack. Currently it has 2 charges, so it'll be getting 3 charges instead. Pretty cool. Why not? Why not? Let's have a little looky at the job action trailer though, and see what they got to show off for us, eh? So it's kind of hard to see what exactly they're doing. They start with a deck of cards, though. I'm in the way. And then it looks like they use Divination, then their dot, and a card. Then that's Malefic. Then they use another card on someone else. So they use the card on the left first, then the card on the right, and then the card in the middle. Did Gravity. And it looks like they used the Minor Arcana card after that. Then they got Neutral Sect going on. That looks like an... so they drew more cards, and that looked like the Minor Arcana. Now they're using some more cards. That looks like Helios. It looks like they're also using like Horoscope as well. I'm not super duper familiar with the current animations for Astro. But it also looked like they used either Celestial Intersection, I think it's called. But it could also possibly be they've revamped the shield. That animation at the end looked kind of like a new AoE shieldy thing. Also, they used Macrocosmos in there as well somewhere. Let's have a little looky at how it currently functions, though, and we'll kind of try to piece together what it seems to be they're doing there. Okay. Oh, I haven't been wiggling. So let's kind of try to mimic what they did in the trailer. So they start with a deck of cards. Well, I'll just draw a card first of all. Bam. I've got one card. So if you look over here, you've got your single card that you draw, and you've also got your Minor Arcana. I'm going to have to get into combat to draw a Minor Arcana. So we'll drop our dot, combust. There we go. We've drawn Lady of Crowns as well. So they've completely revamped this element. They've removed the sign thingy, so I'll just apply this to myself. There we go. So I've got that little symbol that was on the card. Let's draw another one. So you can see here they've got these symbols at the top of the card in addition to the border. So as it currently works, you want to get these symbols to buff Astrodyne. Where it used to be is that actually these buffs went to Divination, but they wanted to reduce the variation in how effective divination was, and then they made Astrodyne a personal buff that used these. Now they're just getting rid of this concept altogether, which means Astrodyne serves no purpose anymore. So that's one button gone from the kit. I'm okay with that. Astrodyne always... It didn't, in my opinion, it didn't feel very good, so I'm okay with this. We've got the same sign, so we can use redraw. Wait, where is redraw on my bar? There it is. Bam. Okay, so redraw, as it currently is, it would draw a different card from your deck. I'm assuming redraw is going to go away, since you're going to be getting all 4 cards at the same time. They're going to be getting, since they're getting rid of that random element, you're not going to really need to worry about redrawing a card. So you can see this is another teal bordered card, so that's, you typically would want to give that to a melee. So you can see right here, that's the arrow. Increases damage dealt by the party member or self by 6%. Oh, it's 6%. And 3%, not 3%, 1%. I think I got mixed up with the PvP actions. So that's another one. Another little sign for here. So we've got 2. We got 2 for Astrodyne. We've got yet another symbol again. Let's redraw. There we go. So now we've got a purple border card. So we'd want to give that to me. So you can see there. Increases damage dealt by party member or self if the target is ranged, DPS, or healer by 6%, 3% for others. And also gives the solar sign. And so these signs going to be going away. Now I've got 3 of those signs. I can use Astrodyne, which is also going away. And because I got 3 different signs, the buff is better. I got 3 kinds of buffs instead. And I think that's why they're getting rid of Astrodyne and the signs. They're getting rid of the random element altogether. Now instead of having it be unknown what kind of sign, so what kind of buff you're going to be getting with Astrodyne, you're going to have... specific known buffs with the cards. So I got Lady of Crowns with the Minor Arcana, so that's an AoE heal currently. I think that's equivalent to Helios. Yeah, that's equivalent to Helios, which is your hard cast AoE heal. Aspected Helios is the one that has the regen on it. It's basically their version of Medica 2. Let's draw another Minor Arcana and see what we get. Another Lady of Crowns. So I got yet another one after just healing. So you can see why they wanted to remove the random element from this too. Because you don't know what you're going to get. Could be Lord of Crowns, could be Lady of Crowns. Depending on if everyone's healed, you'd probably want a Lord of Crowns. And if people need healing, you probably would want a Lady of Crowns. And so the cards could end up being drawn in a completely redundant situation. So... I think this is a change for the better in that regard. Because currently as it is, it's just like, it's whether it's a bonus or not. You can't really plan around it. So the way they've changed it, you can actually plan around things now. Let's look at the so Celestial Opposition. I think that is what the ability they used at the end. I think that is the ability they used. In the past, in Shadowbringers, when... Astrologian was also a shield healer. This would have a different effect depending on what sect you're in. I wonder, does neutral sect affect that? It's been a while since I've played this. I don't think neutral sect affects that. I think it just affects the Benefic and Helios abilities. Yeah, aspected Benefic or aspected Helios. Let's see what card we got. Another Lady of Crowns. That's three Lady of Crowns in a row. So you can kind of see, like, if everyone's already all healed up, and you've already, like, planned your healing around, like, using your other very powerful tools, like Neutral Sect, and like, Horoscope, and you've got your Earthly Star, and especially Macrocosmos, because that can potentially heal the entire party to full. Lady of Crowns really becomes redundant. So you'd be kind of, I feel, hoping for Lord of Crowns constantly. And you can see here Essential Dignity. It's already got 2 charges. It's going to be getting a 3rd. So, your typical play of an Astro, you'd want your dot up. You'd be doing Malefic. If it's card time... Oh, that's not the button I wanted. If it's card time, You'd want light speed up so you can do that. Draw your card. Oh yeah, that's something I can use. Bam, I'll use it on me. Everyone needs a heal. Do that. Bam. Get another card out. Oh, I in particular need a heal. Let's do Essential Dignity. That person's in a bit of trouble. Let's just give them a regen though. That sort of thing. Another Lady of Crowns. You can kind of see what I was talking about. Let's redraw that card as well. There we go. There's a different sign. I've got just want to add this over here. I'm going to put it over here anyway. I'm kind of surprised I got Sinistry there too. You know what? I think I changed my hotbars on an alt. Yeah, I did. And I haven't adjusted them on here. I think that's what's up. But yeah. They've removed the randomness from the cards. No more draw. No more single drawing of a card. They're probably just going to have draw, and that draw is the whole deck. They'll probably get rid of redraw. As you can see, I don't have undraw on my deck, my thingy, because there's no need for it. What are these doing over here? That's very peculiar. Hotbars have been doing very weird things lately. I don't know why they're over there. So yes. Let's see what we get with with the Minor Arcana again. Funny if it was another. Okay, we got Lord of Crowns. So there's 250 potency in an AoE. So that's nice. That's a nice little extra bonus. It's basically you getting a free Malefic in AoE, which is pretty cool. I think this will make dungeons more interesting, honestly, as well, because then you can just be like, okay, I know I've got an extra AoE bit of damage that I can do. You can kind of guarantee for yourself. Oh, look at that. I've got all 3 signs again. I do think it's interesting because when we went from Shadowbringers to Endwalker, they removed a move called Sleeve Draw, which would let you do another draw and it would basically guarantee getting a symbol that you wanted. There were little tricks that you could do using Redraw and Sleeve Draw to guarantee getting the signs and making sure you got maximum buffs on Divination. And I think it annoyed a couple of people. It annoyed me when they removed Sleeve Draw in Endwalker. And it kind of feels like the changes they're making in Dawn Trail are backtracking on a bunch of things they did in Endwalker. And in some cases, because they're giving new effects to the cards beyond just being damage buffs, they are also kind of backtracking on the changes made even in Shadowbringers, which is very interesting. Very interesting. That hopefully it plays well. It sounds like it's going to be good. I can't say for sure. We need to get it in our hands, but that's Astrologian anyways. So next up, we're going to be looking at Sage, which I personally think is looks pretty interesting. Looks pretty interesting out of the lot. I think. Well, we'll get to it, and I'll give my opinion after that. Yeah, let's go look at Sage. Actually, one last thing I did want to say about Astrologian that I do have in my notes here is it feels like because they drew in the trailer. Let's whoosh back over actually. In the trailer, they used the left card and then the right card and then the middle card and then the Minor Arcana. And then they did it in a completely different order for the second drawing. I feel like it implies you get all the cards. You can use them in any order where you need them as you see fit. It's hard to say whether the color of the border on the cards will make a difference. That's something we'll have to see when we can see the actual effects of the cards. But the fact that they've said they have offensive, defensive, and curative cards, it's very interesting to me. Hopefully that doesn't just mean like Lord of Crowns is offensive, Lady of Crowns is curative, and then the other cards are like defensive. Hopefully they have more effects across all the different cards, especially now they've gotten rid of the signs. I think there's a lot of potential there. And now we're going to be looking at Sage. So, I completely random aside, I freaking love the art for this our Sage here, and it looks freaking cute. What the heck? That's some cute art. I mean, I also I didn't mention this before during the Scholar stuff, but I love the smug expression on the Scholar's face, and I love that the The little fairies hugging the scholar's arm. It's really cute. The art that they've shown in these is really great. I think especially for the healers. This sage looks sassy as heck though. I like her a lot. I reckon it's just great. I have slowly become an Aura enjoyer over Endwalker. But that's neither here nor there. The first thing that they mentioned is Eucrasia will now be able to be used on Dyscrasia too. So you've got Eucrasian Dyscrasia, and that's going to be an AoE dot, which I think is very interesting because Scholar got an AoE dot as well, but it was tied to Chain Stratagem. Whereas Eucrasia you can use at any moment. Chain Stratagem is a 2-minute cooldown, so we'll have a little bit of a talk about that once we get into the game. That is very interesting. And then they've said that there's a new party-wide buff, heals nearby party members with a caster, casts, and attack. So it's basically, instead of single target Cardion, which you have right now, you'd cast Cardia on a tank or whoever, and your attacks would heal them for a certain potency. This is going to have a cooldown, and it's going to heal the party every time you attack. So that's interesting. And they've also said that Soteria is going to be stackable with it. And what Soteria does is it boosts the healing done via cardio effects. They didn't put this on the slide, but they also said Soteria will be getting a shorter cooldown. Currently, it's 90 seconds, I believe. So that's pretty going to give it a lot more use. I'm a big fan of Soteria. We'll talk about that when we get into the game, though. But let's have a looky at the job action trailer for Sage. A boop and a boop. So first up, they use Eucrasia, then they do a Eucrasian dosis for the dot, and they just do a regular dosis. Some kind of new AoE ability. They used it without Eucrasia though, so I think that's something different. They used Eucrasia again and an AoE, so that's a shieldy heal. That's Numa. They used Caracole, which is their shield. Then that looked like Toxicon. They did their dash. They do a Phlegma. They did a Eucrasia before the dash. So I think that ability then with the purple that they did after the Phlegma, I think that was the dot. Let's go back and have a little bit of a look at that again. So there's Caracole. There's some new ability. I think that's possibly the AoE Cardion. And they did Toxicon, Eucrasia, Phlegma. And then that looks like the AoE dot. Which is, so it's interesting. It looks like it spreads out from the Sage instead of being cast on a target. Which I think that's pretty interesting. So let's have a little bit of a looky at how Sage currently functions in the game. Yeah. Okay. Now I swap over to Sage. Boop. So, again, like I said before, we're going to be kind of mimicking what they did in the trailer. So first up, they used Eucrasia. So we got Eucrasia going. Eucrasian dosis for the dot and also to engage in combat. They did a dosis, which is its regular attack. They did some kind of new AoE ability. Then they did Soteria, I believe. And that's the one that gives you a buff on cardio effects. And like I said, it's 90 seconds. So yeah, it increases the cardio healing by 70%. It's huge. It is a huge effect. You want to use this all the time, honestly. Whenever someone needs big healing, whoever's got cardio on them, you want to use that a lot. And we're going to be able to use it a lot more. And that'll affect the party-wide cardio as well. So you could... they did Numa at some point. So what Numa does is it's basically the same potency as a dosis, but it also does a big 600 cure potency. And if you combine that with Zoe, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but that's how I'm pronouncing it. That does a 50% extra heal. So they're like, that's a 900 potency heal just to everyone, because it's an AoE heal, which is ridiculous. And it also, whoever has Cardia also gets a 170 cure potency as well. So with that AoE card of your ability, you're going to get like an 1070 potency heal on the whole party when you combine those 3 skills, which is ridiculous. And then you're going to have Soteria on top of that. That's a big, massive heal. Assuming all of those abilities can stack, that's ridiculous. That's huge. They also did... Let's check the animation. Yeah, so they did Eucrasian Prognosis, which is the AoE shield heal, GCD shield heal. And then I believe they did Pepsis. Yes, they did. That was the animation for Pepsis. And what that does is anyone that has a shield on them, it cures for each person for the potency of the shield. So if it's Diagnosis, Eucrasian Diagnosis, it's 450, 350 for Prognosis. Very big heal. So like you can chuck out your Eucrasian Prognosis. Some people might take if you put it out at the same time as like Holos, which also has a shield on it, or Panheimer. You got a bunch of big shields going on, and then the Pepsis is still left over. You can just pop that and heal anyone, top them up. Another thing that you can also do with it is, you might put out a shield after everyone's taken raid-wide damage. Just say you got, like, you're in dire straits and you need more healing. You've got no Adder's Gall stacks, and everything else is on cooldown. You can always just, worst case scenario, chuck a shield out and then do Pepsis and kind of top people off, and then chuck out another shield to keep people safe. It's very, very nice utility, I think. It's kind of similar to emergency tactics on Scholar, except you can use it after the fact, which is very nice. They used Caracole. That's their shield that goes on everyone. The damage mitt. What is it? 10%, yeah, on everyone. 10% damage down. Then they did another ability that looked like it was the AoE cardio. It's hard to say from the animation. Then they did Eucrasia again. Then they dashed in using Icarus. They did a Phlegma. And then they did something after Phlegma, which I'm assuming is the dot. Because it had a similar animation to Eucrasian Dosis, which is the single target dot. Except they did it above the head, so I think that was the AoE dot. And the fact that they did, as with Scholar, the fact that they did their single target dot and then the AoE dot, to me that feels like they probably stack. I'm hoping they stack and they don't override each other, because that would be very cool. Because then you'd have your single target dot that you want to maintain, and then you have your AoE dot, which you can throw out as well. So that's basically the changes. I think personally for me, well, let's go back out of the game. But that's what we've got going on with Sage anyway. Let's have a little bit of a talk about the healer stuff all up overall. So yes, I think generally I think there are some very interesting changes they've made here. I think White Mage having the dash is very cool. That's very nice. Is it exciting? Not really. It's not a big, huge, like, wow, that's so incredible, like, level 100 skill that it'd get. But it's still something that's pretty exciting, I think. Also, the extra charge to Tetra is pretty cool. Extra AoE attacks, that's always going to, like, mix things up. You kind of want a bit of variety in what you're doing with your damage, so that's nice. Scholar, again, Seraphism, it just looks really cool. I'm assuming that's their level 100 skill. It looks very neat, very flashy. The fact that you transform is very cool and exciting, in my opinion. I think that's rad. Then we've got Astro. Cards not being random. Nice little quality of life. I think it's hilarious they're removing Astrodyne after one expansion. They introduced it in Endwalker and it's going with Endwalker. Kind of funny to me. Extra charge to Essential Dignity. Nice. they already had 2 charges, but I guess they didn't want to leave it out with giving White Mage a charge to Tetra. Sorry, my slides alternate between being invisible and visible. Sage. I think Sage probably has the most effective additions, honestly. Like, that AoE Cardia, really cool. And the cooldown reduction on Soteria, also very cool. I think it's interesting because you can draw a parallel between all of the additions that the healers get. The cooldown on Soteria is comparable to the cooldown on Recitation. The addition of a stack to Tetra is comparable to the stack on Essential Dignity. They're all getting some kind of AoE attack. I'm assuming that there's going to be an AoE attack card that you guaranteed get with Astro, which is comparable to getting those 3 AoE attacks using Presence of Mind for White Mage. And both Scholar and Sage both getting an AoE dot. So there are a couple of little wrinkles that still make the jobs pretty unique, but I think it's kind of funny. Some people might think it's a little bit sad that they're basically making it the new additions kind of being shared between jobs instead of being fully unique. I mean, it makes sense though. They don't want people to go, no White Mages allowed, or no Scholars allowed. Because you're going to want that AoE dot, and you don't want people to say, sorry, Scholar, you don't have an AoE dot, or vice versa. I'm still curious about how, because as you saw during the little demo that I was doing just now, you can use Eucrasia whenever. So I'm curious if the AoE dot Eucrasian Dyscrasia is going to have a cooldown on it. We'll have to see. It might have a separate cooldown to Dyscrasia, because I can't see them just letting Scholar use it whenever the dot, Sage use it whenever the dot drops off when Scholar has to wait for change stratagem. I'm sure there's going to be a 2-minute cooldown on it or something. It's going to be interesting to see anyway. We do have the media tour coming up, so we're going to get some more details, more specific details, which is exciting. But thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found this video interesting in some regard, whether it was informative or entertaining or all of the above. If you want to do the YouTube stuff, feel free to, but I don't know. YouTube kind of bunk. You don't have to if you don't want to. Screw YouTube. Do what you want. But I will also say I'm over on Twitch, so look down in the description for the socials. And also thank you for indulging me in giving a little bit of my opinion in this one. I tried to keep my opinions to a minimum in the tank one. I'm probably going to give my opinions more so in the DPS one, which will be coming up shortly. Or you've already watched it, depending on when you're watching these. But either way, take care of yourself. You're a good bean. Bye-bye. Bye.